Hello, everyone. I'm Celeste Headley. I am host of the Conference for Women's podcast, Women Amplified, and also the MC for the conference tomorrow. On behalf of our board and the entire team, I honestly am so thrilled that you have joined us for this first ever Texas Conference for Women virtual career fair. This event features more than a dozen top employers looking to fill thousands of job openings with the goal of getting as many women as possible back to work right now. So we hope you had a chance to explore and meet many of the recruiters who are participating today. And I just want to take a moment before we begin to express our grief for those who've been affected by the violence at Timberview High School today. Our deepest sympathies are with you, and we absolutely hope you have the support that you need at this time. Now, I am very excited to welcome to you to our live Ask the Recruiter session. Joining me today is Kay Meyer, Talent Acquisition Leader from Deloitte. And Kay is here to help you navigate this new reality of finding and interviewing for a job virtually, and to give you the inside scoop on the hiring process from a recruiter's perspective. Now, we will try to get to as many of your questions as possible over the next 30 minutes. You can type your question using the chat feature that you'll see to the right of the screen. I'm going to get us started while we wait for your questions to filter in. So, Kay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. I'm looking forward to hearing from the group and hopefully providing some insights and some good takeaways to help you as you navigate your career search or wherever you may be in your career journey right now.
We love takeaways.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the hiring process has evolved over the past 18 months at Deloitte. What has changed?
Well, we have seen a cultural shift as well as a complete process overhaul in how we not only attract talent to Deloitte and engage with them initially, but get through the interview and the assessment process as well as onboarding. So Deloitte, we are large. We have offices in almost every major city, and we historically used to bring people into our offices for interview sessions in person. When COVID hit, we did see a slowdown in hiring for a few months, but then we realized that as the marketplace started to heat up again, that we also needed to turn on our hiring engines. And at that point, we were all living in a virtual setting. And so we had to very quickly pivot to all virtual interviews. And we've adapted pretty well to it. It's amazing to see that we are making hiring decisions at all levels across our firm. So starting with our fresh college graduates coming off of campus, all the way up to our executive level hiring, where these decisions are being made kind of over camera like we are right now.
So what changes, I'm going to ask that question let me ask that question first. With so much uncertainty right now, this is from our viewers, is it a good time to switch jobs?
Well, I think that's going to be a personal decision for everyone. However, what we're seeing right now is unprecedented a number of open positions and a tremendous amount of people already changing jobs. Some of you might see articles out there referring to the Great Resignation. And it's not because people are just dropping out. They're moving to a new opportunity. I think that there are some industries that are really seeing tremendous growth and are hiring people at numbers that those firms have never seen before. Deloitte is one of them. We're hiring folks in the thousands and across, again, all levels of our firm. And what I would recommend someone right now is if you've got an inkling to try to do something different, right now is a good opportunity. There are a lot of different roles out there, companies that are growing in areas that are fairly new markets, new technologies. And if you've got that opportunity to look, I would say it doesn't hurt to look. Now, you never have to say yes or no until you get another job offer. But it is, I think, with all of the opportunity that we're seeing in the marketplace, if you are interested in taking that next step or continuing your career journey in a new organization, that this is the time to be bold and to do that.
So now this is the question I was going to ask, because you said that you guys are doing your interviews virtually, and maybe you
Mm-hmm.
could tell us a few of these best practices for doing interviews through a conference call, or what, like we're doing right now. What
Yeah.
changes in a virtual interview?
Well, first of all, the context of the interview and how you show up to that interview should be the same. So just because you're sitting at home, like I am right now in San Diego, California, if I was showing up for an interview, I would still dress to impress. You show up as if you were walking in the door of that office and meeting those people face to face. Also, the coming prepared, being knowledgeable of the company that you're interviewing, having your list of questions for that interviewer, just as they're going to have questions for you, is everything you would do if you were sitting there in the same room with them. So I think it's easy to get hung up on, oh, I'm on Zoom or I'm on whatever virtual platform you're being asked to meet on, but the content and the discussion and the engagement should be the same as if you were sitting in the same room as that person.
What should people avoid during interview? What should people not do? And if you have specific examples, obviously anonymous, of mistakes maybe that people have made when they're in a virtual interview.
First, I would say listen to the questions and make sure that you understand what you're being asked. Second, try to summarize your response. So don't ramble on too long. Oftentimes, if someone is in an interview session and you've got back-to-back interviews, you've got a time slot. Like today, we have 30 minutes. So I can't spend too much time talking about one subject. Otherwise, we'll run out of time to cover something else. So be succinct, come prepared with your answers. And I would also say, try to find opportunities to ask questions of the interviewer as well. Going back to what should I avoid doing? When I'm coaching candidates, one of the things I always tell them is, while you might be working in a team environment, try to move away from the we and talk about you. Talk about what you've done within that organization, on that project, on that engagement, and really carve out the impact that you made to the team at that moment. So I know a lot of people want to talk about, well, we were very successful, and you want to come off as a team player, but really you're being interviewed for what you bring to the table. So it's important to call that out and really, be an advocate for yourself through the interview process.
There's so much contradictory advice on how to construct a resume for someone with a lot of experience on that. What are the formatting tips, the content tips? I had one. I remember getting a resume, and this is when we were still getting paper resumes, where they'd used, the printing was in pink and I couldn't read it. So short of that, what are some of the things that you might tell people to do or not do on their resumes?
Yeah, well, I think most resumes now are soft copies. So maybe the pink will be recognized by the ATS system, but I would stick with black ink. And I would say keep it short. Keep it short and succinct. 1 to 2 pages is enough. This is not your project portfolio, in that you need to go into every detail of every project or effort that you've been involved in. But the important thing is to highlight your career progression. And then, depending on the role that you're applying for and what you want to do next, looking at the specific job description and customizing your resume to resonate with what that job description is requiring and preferring is I think a great way to approach your job search. So what that means is, you might have your LinkedIn profile, which is, you can change that daily if you want, but it could be pretty static for the most part. As you apply for different roles, note the key words that those job descriptions have listed and look at your resume. And if your resume is missing those key words, edit your resume to include them. Now, provided you've done that, right? You've got those skills and you have that
Tell the truth,
experience.
yeah.
But you know, to think that your one resume is going to catch the eye of multiple different job descriptions in multiple different organizations is probably selling yourself short. You've got to think about those keywords and those preferences that specific job you're applying for is calling out.
That can go too far, though, right? Because sometimes women, especially, tend to not apply for jobs if they don't have every single qualification that's asked for in a job posting, and that can prevent women from applying for jobs for which they're absolutely qualified.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And I would say this is where be bold. If you've got an interest in that role, and then apply. I would also say that if you know someone in that organization or have some kind of connection to someone, and it might be a second or a third degree connection, try to get an inroad there. You know, if you've got an interest in a job and maybe you're second guessing yourself, try to learn more about it before you apply. And if you've got an opportunity to connect with someone at that organization that could give you a little bit more insight, I would say absolutely do that. But if you're looking at a job description and you are reading it and you say yes, 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 and then you say maybe, don't hesitate to apply, because those requirements are usually the minimum. The preferred skills are just that, they're preferred. And every person is going to bring something unique from their own experience and from their own career path that you can't always put into a job description. So you might bring something that isn't even listed there that then makes you that preferred candidate.
How do you handle interviewers who don't show up, or you get an incorrect link that takes you nowhere? And perhaps this affects you moving on to the next steps in the interviews. These small details, because frankly, this is not just somebody showing up at your office and you meeting with them, right? There's technical details involved. There's
technical glitches that unfortunately we have to address on the fly, both on, I would say our candidates dialing in, as well as sometimes system shortages or system outages that might create a glitch. I would assume that if you've gotten to the point where you are interviewing, then you've got a relationship with your recruiter, or perhaps with your recruiting scheduler, the person that's setting up these time slots for you. So if you are waiting on the line and an interviewer is not there after 5 minutes, pick up the phone, text, call, email. Well, I wouldn't email. I would pick up the phone real time to try to reach that recruiter or that scheduler that set it up for you and connect with them right away. There is no reason for you to be hanging out if there's going to be a no-show for an intervieur. But sometimes someone's just
I would wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, I would wait 10 minutes. It's like the professor rule. I'd wait 10 minutes, but if it's 5 minutes goes by and someone's not there, you should definitely connect with your recruiter. So don't hesitate to, make that call. And then if you are seeing or receiving incorrect links, when possible, try to click on a link in advance, just to make sure that it actually goes somewhere. It might say that the host is waiting to let you in, or this meeting isn't starting for another 12 hours. But at least you know that link was set up properly. So test that technology wherever you can. And again, in that prep for the interview, test your speakers, test your camera, test your lighting to make sure that that's all working on your end as well.
What advice do you have for candidates with a large career gap? And they may be looking for a restart. And I wonder if we could split this into two different parts. Like, what's considered a large career gap that might, motivate questions about it? And then how do we handle it?
Yeah. Well, a career gap is a career gap, and it depends on what you're planning to do with this next phase of your career. So let's say you are out of the workforce for 3 years. You probably still have some very relevant skills that just need a touch up. They just need a refresh. If you're out of the workforce for 15 years and you want to do something completely different, that's almost the start of a whole new career. So you'd approach that a little differently. So let's focus on that large career gap, since this is specific to the question. In those cases, I would, depending on what you're trying to do, assuming that it's either a new career for you or you are brushing off some old skills, one of the things that I would look for are programs called returnships. And there are many different companies across multiple industries that are offering these kinds of programs right now. They come in, and sometimes they're labeled different names. I think that probably the industry term for it is returnship, but you might see something called hire to train, or you might see programs called train to hire, which are vendors and agencies and firms that work with certain populations to get them upskilled, and then work with employers on the background to get them hired. But internally, there are many larger firms like Deloitte that have hire to train programs, boot camps, and returnships that focus on all kinds of different skills and levels and across different industries. One program that we have at Deloitte is called Encore. And while Encore is focused on women returning to work, it's open to anyone that has had to leave the workforce for whatever reason and is now looking to make their way back in. And like Deloitte's program, and similar to what you'd see across other employers, these provide a paid program. So you're getting paid, and you're not doing this for free. You get training, whether it is updating on a particular certification that you need for a technical skill, updating consultative skills, or client facing skills in whatever industry you're in, and provide not only that hard skills training, but also mentorship and coaching throughout the program. And at the end of that, at Deloitte, those Encore cohorts are offered a full-time position, provided it's a good fit for everyone. And so I would recommend looking, you can go out and Google returnships, and you'll see a list of companies that are already doing this. And for any of you that are out there that are military veterans, there are a lot of programs that are specifically focused on getting our vets retooled and back to work as well.
Oh, I bet this is on a lot of people's minds. How about a recent graduate who has limited work experience? They don't have to worry about editing down their resume. What can they do to stand out in an interview?
I think in this case, focus on project work that you did in your probably more senior classes. If you had leadership roles on that, any type of internships or co-op programs that you were involved in, or capstone projects that you were involved in, you should absolutely highlight that. And ask about any type of internship programs that organization might be offering. I think traditionally internships are offered to upcoming, rising college juniors and seniors, but there are programs out there and companies out there that hire fresh college grads and put them into internships as well. So those would be also very similar to a returnship. It is a program to give these folks retooling or upskilling, or in this case, maybe developing brand new skills in order to be, a good, solid employee for that company.
Do they have to be careful? I'll get to that in a second, but do they have to be careful about what they put on their resume? For example, my son was applying for a job, and I said, put on your college, the jobs that you've had while you're in college. And he said, no, they're not related at all. And I said, well, if this is your first job, they probably want to see that you're a reliable worker, right?
Yes.
Is that true, or did I give him bad advice?
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I would absolutely highlight the academics first. But if you're working during college, I think it's absolutely relevant to put that on there. If you're a collegiate athlete, put it on your resume. To me, that shows that you've got time management skills, that you can balance your workload, you can multitask. And I think it adds to, it shows some character in the potential employee that you would be getting.
Okay. For candidates who want to switch industries, maybe professional services versus tech, Is it better to focus on finding and connecting with industry recruiters, or um, resume tweaks to focus on those to get beyond those systems, those ATS systems?
Yeah. So the resume tweaks, that would kind of tie back to what I was saying around the keywords and how there's not one resume that's going to fit every potential organization that you might want an inroad into. So applying is great. Applying, gets you into the system. However, I will tie this back to your networking. So if you have, through your LinkedIn connections, if you've got somebody that you know, or maybe it's a friend of a friend or a friend of a former colleague that you know is at that company, be bold in asking for an introduction, because usually that person, if there's an employee referral program at that company, they can refer you, and then you get flagged as an employee referral. Usually in the ATS system, there might be something like, a little ear next to it or something, that literally an icon that would identify you as an employee referral. And those usually get, I wouldn't say prioritized, but they get attention because we want to address the referrals that are coming through our own employees. So keyword searches on your resume, customize it for each one, network through your LinkedIn connections, and then also connect with those recruiters. You'll find if you go out on LinkedIn and you're doing a search for a particular company, you might see those recruiters posting that they're hiring for XYZ. And that's a great opportunity to send them a message through LinkedIn, and you'll connect with them directly. You might not have their corporate email address, but they'll get that email through their LinkedIn, in mail. So I would say absolutely, again, tap your network and be bold in making those efforts to reach out.
In a remote environment, networking looks very different. So, how do you navigate this in terms of your job search? And obviously, this is you've just addressed a couple of the ways in terms of going to LinkedIn and finding the recruiters. Are there other ways besides just the friend of the friend of the friend of the friend of the friend and LinkedIn that I can sort of recreate that networking experience?
Well, I think the Texas Conference for Women is a perfect example. There's an opportunity to network with recruiters through the virtual career fair, and then I believe even there were some tips on the landing page around how to network at a virtual conference. So take those tips to heart. But again, I think if you're dialing into a group session and you sit back and you're just listening, that's fine if that's all if that's your takeaway for the day. But if you want to make those connections, you got to reach out. You got to make that first ping. You've got to ask a question, and that often opens up some doors and at least opens up some conversations. So I think that the networking in a remote and a virtual environment is, in one way, it's almost harder because you have to make that first ping, so to speak. But in another way, we've got an opportunity to network in ways that we hadn't before nationally, and with people from all over the country, all over the world. And so while we used to think about networking as going to an event after whatever conference, or you go to a happy hour with some colleagues, now that is all virtual. So you do have an opportunity to extend that across multiple different aspects of your existing network as it is now.
I have found that people are finding me through other things that I do. Like, for example, I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I had one of the people that was on one of our conference calls reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw that your company does XYZ. Could I send you my resume to keep on file, because that's the kind of work that I do?" I have found that there are some people who are using these other connections every time that they're on there to make connections as well, which I think is really great.
Yeah, I think that's great. If you've got an interest in a speaker tomorrow, and you've got an opportunity to do a follow-up question with them or connect with them through your network, I would absolutely recommend it. And again, I think it comes back to be bold. You've got to take that first step for yourself, and you've got to be that advocate for yourself, whether you're networking for a sales opportunity, a business connection, or in this case, for your career or in your job search. It's up to you. You're in charge of your own destiny when it comes to this. You can't just like sit back and wait for it to happen.
How do you decline to move forward in an interview process without burning bridges? That's a great question.
It's a great question. And I think depending on where you are in the interview process, the approach to this is the same. Be honest. If you are finding that for whatever reason, maybe the interviewer that you talked to just didn't seem like you gelled with that person, or you're learning more about maybe an aspect of the job, whether it's travel or a co-location aspect, that's not what you're looking for, be honest and just tell your recruiter at that point. Because if you give that positive feedback, or it might not be positive, but if you give that transparent feedback at that moment, there could be another opportunity that recruiter is aware of that could be a better fit for you. So by just kind of pulling out or going radio silent through the process, that would burn a bridge. So providing feedback as to why you're pulling out of the process or declining to move forward is only going to help you and continue to maintain that relationship, but it could also result in some unforeseen new opportunities for you as well.
Yeah, because you're showcasing your great communication skills.
Exactly. And being bold.
Okay, specifically, does Deloitte have software engineering opportunities for a career switcher such as myself? If so, what kind of skills does Deloitte look for?
Well, I don't know what skills this person has. However, Deloitte has a number of programs, both in our hire to train, in our boot camps, as well as through the Encore program that I mentioned. And depending on your skill set and what experience you have, we do have programs where we are training people in all kinds of different skills: ServiceNow, Workday, cloud technologies, analytics. So the list goes on and on. So it's hard to kind of drill that down without really having an understanding of that person's background.
But without knowing what software engineering jobs you have open specifically.
But let's say software engineering, let's say this person is a .NET or a Java developer. We would look at that skill and we would say, okay, we have a boot camp starting in January where we're taking those foundational skills and we're going to train people up in XYZ. So if you, at Deloitte specifically, if you go out to the career page, if you click on Encore, there is a list of upcoming cohorts. And we also have other hire to train programs advertised there as well.
I'm still not comfortable being on camera with colleagues at work. Conversation does not flow naturally. I hate how I look. It feels awkward. I have a virtual job interview in a few days. Please help.
Yeah. So first and foremost, and I think I already said this, you should come to your virtual interview the same way you would show up in person. So come prepared. Dress appropriately, whatever that culture of the firm you're interviewing with. Some it's suit and tie, others it's jeans and a t-shirt. Whatever whatever that culture is, you want to be aware of that and show up accordingly. I would say some tips for being on camera, which is if you hate the way you look, which I'm sure it's not bad, but I know we're always our worst critics. In some cases, you can turn your, I'm not sure how I would do it on this
one.
You
can hide self-view.
But you can turn your own mirror off. You can turn your camera off so you do not see yourself. Sometimes in Zoom, you could just go to speaker view, or I think there's another setting. But there's a way to turn yourself off so you don't see yourself talking back to you. So that's one thing you could try. But otherwise, I would say, just be yourself. Sometimes on camera, particularly if you're talking about colleagues at work and you've got a dozen people talk over each other. So it's finding that moment to wait for the break and lean in. If you have something to say and you're on a team where everyone's constantly speaking over, maybe raise your hand and virtually if there's an icon or an opportunity to do that. But bringing it back to the interview, I would say, again, listen to the questions. I mean, it should be maybe it's a panel, but usually interviews are one-on-one. So listen to the question, pause, and respond with what you know.
Okay, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, and it is this one. I've applied to more than 20 jobs within a company over the last few weeks, and I haven't heard back. How do I know my resume didn't end up in a black hole?
Okay. So, my first reaction to this question is, are you truly a fit for all 20 of those jobs? And I ask that because as a recruiter, if I see someone that is applying to 20 jobs all over the map, then I question, what is this person's expertise? What do they really do best? And what do they want to do? So I would say going forward, be selective in the roles that you're applying for and use that networking when you can to try to get that inroad in. I would say in this particular question, not knowing the details, so to speak, that you should have received some kind of automated response, that your resume has been received, your resume is being reviewed, and that someone would follow up with you. I know that most recruiters these days are overloaded. Most companies are hiring at a very quick pace, and sometimes it's just a matter of time to get through all of the applicants that have sent in resumes. So again, without knowing the details, I would give it a few more days. And then if you know the recruiter's name or a recruiter's name, reach out to that person. Maybe find them on LinkedIn and send that email to them. But I would imagine that, in most cases, your resume is not going into a black hole. It's being assessed, and it might just take some time for those folks to get back to you.
Well, this has been a really useful conversation. Kay, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your invaluable advice and your experience. And thanks to all of you for participating today. On behalf of the Texas Conference for Women, we wish you luck on your job search. And make sure that you visit the Conference Career Hub. It's at conferencesforwomen.org/career-hub for more resources, tools. You can find advice there as well to boost your career. Thanks to you, Kay, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you. It was an honor.